Hey, man, you said no, man. I'm gonna be real. You got this handed to you. You got Dana White privilege.
Don't.
Let's talk about Dana White privilege. Dana White, the big boss at UFC, has been known for his iron-fisted control over the company.
Makes me sick. That guy has no business reffing fights, and I promise you, you're not going to see him again.
If you ask him, fighters who put in the hard work and keep winning will get their title shot. But is that really true? To really rise to stardom, you will need more than sweat and skill. You will need Dana White privilege. Stay tuned as we unravel the mystery together.
MMA Fighter Spot, man, that channel is fucking great.
Let's start off with Randy Couture. UFC legend and Hall of Famer, he was not only one of the promotion's most successful fighters, but also one of Dana White's favorites.
Like I said, there's no more of a man when that cage closes, and there's no less of a man when he steps outside of it.
The two shared a close relationship for most of Couture's fight career, which some believe led to preferential treatment for Couture. One example is the way Couture's retirement and unretirement were handled.
Boy, are we gonna see you again?
No, you're not going to see me again. This was it.
He was allowed to return from retirement without any hiccups and was granted an immediate title shot against Tim Silva, which he won. At that point, Couture wasn't even a part of the heavyweight roster for 5 years. So as you can imagine, the decision raised eyebrows among fans, as many felt that other fighters in the division deserved a shot at the title. Unfortunately, as often is the case with Dana, you have to be really careful not to get on his bad side. And unfortunately for Couture, he did exactly that. Couture would have a falling out with the UFC president over contract disputes and his desire to fight the then popular Fedor Emelianenko, a fight that never came to fruition due to negotiations falling through. This falling out led to a very public and bitter feud between Couture and White.
In the history of the sport, you know, everybody thinks he's this Captain America guy and like he's this great guy, when he's really not. Now I don't ever have to be in business with him ever again.
We anticipated that kind of response from Dana, so it wasn't a huge surprise. And, you know, I've chosen to be who I am and take the higher road, be positive and move forward and do what I think is right.
That's why, despite all the highlights on the UFC Instagram and YouTube, you will never see one with Couture. Petty, isn't it? Despite their initial close relationship, Couture's dispute with Dana White led to a bitter public feud, an unfortunate scenario that can emerge when personal and professional lines blur. In a somewhat similar vein, we turn our attention to Michael Chandler, whose quick ascend in the UFC was also laced with speculation about Dana's favoritism, although this time without personal autonomy. For now, Michael Chandler. Michael Chandler, the former Bellator lightweight champion, made a high-profile entry into the UFC, with many attributing his accelerated rise to the top of the division to Dana White's favoritism. Chandler's impressive record from his time in Bellator certainly warranted a significant debut. It was clear that Dana White privilege played a role in the opportunities he received soon after joining the UFC. After an impressive win over Dan Hooker in his UFC debut, Chandler was granted an immediate title shot against Charles Oliveira. Many fans were outraged. They believed that other, more established UFC lightweights deserved a chance at the belt before Chandler. In addition to his title shot, Chandler was given the unprecedented opportunity to serve as the backup for the Khabib Nurmagomedov versus Justin Gaethje title fight, even before he had competed in the UFC. This decision raised eyebrows across the MMA community. And here, again, many believe that more seasoned UFC lightweights were better suited for that role. Chandler's relationship with White represents a clear example of how past achievement in other promotions and a marketable persona can fast-track a fighter's rise within the UFC.
Starting up with the fireworks, get your pay-per-view early at the show open. Justin Gaethje goes out and won.
Speaking of personas, there's one that simply cannot be ignored when it comes to courting controversy and capturing attention within the UFC.
All you filthy animals suck. I got one thing to say. Tyrell Woodley, I'm coming for you.
That of the ever-polarizing Colby Covington. Colby Covington, polarizing figure, yes, in the MMA world, has always been vocal about his support for Dana White.
Cross your boss, and you will learn the hard way. Remember that, Leon. That's the only advice I'm giving you. You don't cross your boss.
Colby also has his eyes on him, and eyes in the MMA world turn into money.
Bringing his belt to the White House, and I'm putting it on Donald Trump's desk.
And boy, oh boy, does Dana like money. In return, White has granted Covington multiple opportunities that other fighters might not have received. For instance, after losing to Kamaru Usman in their first encounter, Covington was given another title shot despite only having one win in the interim. Although Colby is good, the amount of opportunities he gets is quite disproportional. Covington's controversial character also has contributed to his high-profile status within the UFC.
Conor's the daddy.
The Saints scared to hear the truth.
Shut the fuck up.
Dana, what does his 2 pay-per-views add up to?
So scared.
While many believe that White has encouraged and rewarded this behavior, Covington has received numerous main event slots, media appearances, and promotional opportunities, which some argue are the result of his close relationship with the UFC president. The extent of White's favoritism toward Covington has recently reached new heights. With the welterweight division receiving a new champion in the form of Leon Edwards, Dana White has once again worked his magic and given the title shot to Colby Covington.
Colby Covington, like him or not, the guy showed up in London, he cut weight, he did what he was supposed to do. He deserves the fight against Leon. There's no doubt.
Who is coming off a single win over Jorge Masvidal. To fighters such as Gilbert Burns and most of all Bilal Muhammad, this seems like a clear slap in the face. From one agent of chaos to another, our narrative now struts into the realm of the women's division. Once the undisputed queen of the octagon, Ronda Rousey's tale paints a picture of Dana White's soft spot for Pioneer. And of course, a little drama never hurts either. Ronda Rousey. The former UFC women's bantamweight champion was a trailblazer for women in the sport. However, her seemingly very close relationship with Dana White was evident throughout her career. Ronda Rousey was widely considered the top female fighter in the world, and UFC took advantage of that by heavily promoting her. Women's MMA was mostly associated with Rousey and Amanda Nunes, although let's be honest, only one of them truly earned that level of recognition. Ronda Rousey's meteoric rise and preferential treatment she received from White can also be seen in many ways.
She'll be fighting Liz Carmouche, and she is the main event.
As she was allowed to pick her opponents. Hear me out, when she faced Holly Holm, many thought that she had chosen an easier fighter rather than facing the dangerous Amanda Nunes, although that didn't pan out the way she had hoped. Furthermore, Rousey was immediately granted a title shot upon her return after losing the belt to Holm, despite the fact that she'd taken over a year off from competition, and that also wasn't the outcome she wanted. Ronda Rousey's undeniable talent and charisma were key factors in her success, but her close relationship with Dana arguably played a significant role in her rise to stardom. Switching gears from the queen of the octagon to the king of beefcakes, we venture into the realm of one Brock Lesnar. This hulking heavyweight's dalliance with Dana White presents a unique tableau of how sheer physicality and star power can twist the usual roles of engagement within the UFC. Brock Lesnar. Now, let's talk Brock, our favorite roided-up beefcake. It's no secret that this hulking superstar received preferential treatment from the moment that he inked up a deal with UFC. Just a single win under his belt, Lesnar was granted a title shot against the legendary Randy Couture, which he won. While there's no denying Lesnar's prowess as an athlete, fans and fighters alike couldn't help but question why other fighters in the heavyweight division who had been patiently waiting for their turn were overlooked for this opportunity. It soon became evident that the promotion was willing to bend the rules for the sake of their star action. This was especially apparent when Lesnar was permitted to make a grand return to the UFC after a long hiatus, facing Mark Hunt at the blockbuster event UFC 200. Many argued that Lesnar's comeback was purely for promotional purposes and that his lengthy inactivity should have disqualified him from such a high-profile fight, but Lesnar would see to the fact that he came prepared with the help of some supplements. Lesnar was granted an exemption from the standard 4-month USDA testing requirement for returning fighters, further fueling suspicions of favoritism. And after he was popped for using performance-enhancing substances, it became clear that the preferential treatment extended beyond mere opportunities. Before his fight against Hunt, Lesnar tested positive for banned substances in a sample collected outside of the competition. Additionally, he tested positive for the same substance in his sample collected during this bout. However, Lesnar was still permitted to participate in the fight, which sparked more criticism and doubts regarding the UFC and Dana White's reliability. And of course,
he's still under contract with us too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he still has fights left on his deal.
Okay, so there's nothing to sign. It's just a matter of him coming back?
Well, he's got to get back into the USADA pool.
Can we really talk about Dana White's favoritism without mentioning his poster boy, his precious golden goose, Conor McGregor? Conor McGregor, one of the most famous fighters in the world, has undoubtedly been a beneficiary of Dana White's favoritism.
Pound champion of the UFC, the notorious Conor
McGregor's rapid rise to a title shot, his ability to hold two belts simultaneously without defending either title, and being granted immediate rematches in high-profile fights are all seen as examples of, quote, Dana White privilege. Moreover, McGregor's antics outside of the octagon have been largely tolerated by White and the UFC. Have you noticed that? With many fans believing that any other fighter would have faced harsher consequences for similar actions. For instance, the infamous bus attack in Brooklyn and the post-fight brawl at UFC 229 involving Khabib Nurmagomedov were met with relative lenient penalties, further fueling accusations of favoritism. Yet sometimes, even Dana's favorites, when they don't do as they're told, get the burnt end of the stick. Francis Ngannou. The former UFC heavyweight champion is an intense and interesting case when it comes to the topic of Dana White privilege. Initially, Ngannou received significant attention and promotion from White and the UFC thanks to his impressive knockout power and potential to become a breakout star.
For the most powerful punch. His punch is the equivalent to 96 horsepower, which is equal to getting hit by a Ford Escort going as fast as it can.
However, as Ngannou's career progressed and his demands grew, his relationship with White took an unexpected turn for the worse.
No. We negotiated with him for years. It's over.
When it came time for Ngannou to renegotiate his contract, he and Dana White wouldn't come to terms on a new deal. Ngannou would ask for more money, but also better conditions for his fellow fighters.
You did not get a new contract, you?
No, I will not fight for 500,000-600,000 anymore. I mean, it's over.
But you know how Dana is, giving fighters a healthcare plan, a new sponsorship deal? Outrageous. How could Francis ask for such otherworldly conditions? As a result, Ngannou decided to leave the UFC, feeling that the UFC simply didn't have the fighter's best interest at heart. In this case, the Dana White privilege appears to have backfired, with Ngannou's departure from the UFC being a direct result of his soured relationship with the promotion's president.